I don't remember the explosion. I remember the silence after. It was the kind of silence that rings in your ears, that makes your heartbeat sound like artillery. It was supposed to be a routine sweep, a collapsed apartment block after a gas line detonation on the outskirts of Phoenix. I'd been on 100 of these missions as a U.S. Army search and rescue specialist. Dust, debris, twisted steel. It was familiar terrain. But nothing prepared me for this one. I hit the ground hard when the top floor caved. Some missions end when you come home. Others follow you like a shadow that never learned how to fade. For me, it started long before the building collapse. Long before the day I pulled that little girl from under the rubble. It began the first time I realized saving people wasn't just a job. It was the only way I knew how to keep my own past from swallowing me. I grew up in a military family in Colorado. My dad was Army. His dad was Army. The kind of men who didn't cry, didn't complain, didn't flinch even when the world felt like it was cracking open. But I was different. I felt everything too loudly. A slammed door could lift my heartbeat. A sad story could sit in my chest all day. Dad used to say, real strength isn't shutting your emotions off. It's knowing when to let them through. Maybe that it was 3 months after the rescue. 3 months after pulling that tiny girl, pale, trembling, barely breathing, from a pocket of air beneath a collapsed beam. 3 months of nightmares I couldn't shake and moments of panic that came out of nowhere. My commanders called it PTSD. I called it a ghost I couldn't stop following me. One night, while cleaning out old deployment gear in my garage, I found an envelope tucked inside the front pocket of my rucksack. Wrinkled. Torn at the edges. Addressed in small block handwriting. To the soldier who saved my daughter. My heart stopped. I hadn't even known her mother survived. On-scene reports said the woman was pulled out last, unconscious, oxygen levels dangerously low. I'd always wondered if she made it. A part of me feared she didn't. I sat down on the cold concrete floor and held the letter for a long moment, unsure whether opening it would heal something inside me, or rip something open. But I opened it. The handwriting was shaky but clear. I don't know your name. But my daughter will. She will know who crawled into hell to bring her back into the world. I swallowed hard, already blinking back tears I didn't expect. The doctors say she might not remember anything about the day the building fell. But I will. I remember your voice telling her, I've got you. I'm not leaving. My throat tightened. I remembered it too. Those words spilled out without thinking, like they'd been rehearsed somewhere inside me long before that day. I remembered the dust in my lungs, the weight of debris pressing on my back, the tiny hand gripping my sleeve like I was the last anchor she had. She keeps asking why a stranger would risk everything for someone else's child. I told her you weren't a stranger. You were an angel God sent into the smoke. That line, that one broke me. Because I didn't feel like an angel. I felt like a man barely holding himself together, trying to save someone else to convince myself I was still worth saving. But the next lines were the ones that stayed with me the longest. If she grows up scared, remind her she survived because bravery runs in her blood. If she grows up angry, tell her the world bent but did not break her. And if she grows up singing, tell her she sings because someone carried her into the light. I pressed the letter against my chest and cried for the first time since the mission. Not the quiet, controlled kind of crying soldiers get good at, but the shaking, gasping kind that breaks something open so something else can finally breathe. The garage was cold, the light flickering overhead, the concrete unforgiving beneath me. But for a moment that place felt like a confessional. A space where I could finally admit the truth I'd been hiding. I wasn't okay. Not even close. I read the letter again. And again. Memorizing every line. Every word. Every breath between the sentences. It didn't matter that I didn't know their names. Some connections are made in the chaos. And they lodge themselves deeper than any normal bond ever could. And yet, one detail in the letter unsettled me. A small line at the bottom. She says she wants to thank you. But she's too shy to speak yet. She hasn't spoken since the accident. I froze, the letter trembling in my hands. She wasn't speaking. The trauma had taken her voice. That changed everything. Because I knew, better than anyone, that silence can be worse than pain. Silence can trap you. Silence can swallow years. And suddenly the mission wasn't over. Not for me. Not for her. Her silence felt like a part of me had gone silent too. I folded the letter carefully as if it were something sacred and tucked it into my wallet. I didn't know why. I just knew I needed to carry it. Like it was a compass, pointing me back to something I'd lost on that day beneath the rubble. But I didn't know that 10 years later, that same little girl, the one who couldn't speak, would open her mouth in front of an entire stadium and sing the anthem for me. And her voice would be the one to finally break my silence too. Long enough for the paper to soften at the folds. Long enough for the ink to fade just a little. Long enough for a soldier to convince himself that some memories deserve to stay buried. But memories don't listen. Especially the kind that come with a pair of trembling hands and dust-filled lungs. It was early November when the email arrived. A short, unassuming message sent to my old military account, the one I barely checked. You are cordially invited to the National Veterans Day ceremony. There is someone here who wishes to honor you. Please attend. No name. No signature. No explanation. I almost deleted it. But something, a tug I couldn't name, stopped me. And so, a week later, I found myself walking up the marble steps of the Capitol Plaza Amphitheater. The moment she stepped into the backstage corridor, everything in me tightened at once. That girl, that young woman now, moved with the same careful steps she used to take as a trembling child buried beneath dust. Her shoulders were straight, her chin lifted, but her eyes still carried something I recognized too quickly. A wound time hadn't fully healed. Her handler announced, "Emily, 5 minutes. You ready?" Emily. The name hit me like a delayed explosion. I'd never known it. Not officially. All those years ago, the only thing she'd been able to say through cracked lips and coughing breaths was, "Please, don't leave me." And now here she was, tall, composed, dressed in the ceremonial white and blue choir uniform of the national anthem performers. She didn't see me at first. But I couldn't move. Not when she brushed a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the same nervous habit she had as a child. Not when she tightened her grip around a small silver locket at her neck, the one I remembered zipped into her jacket pocket when we found her. But the moment her eyes lifted, the moment they finally landed on me, her breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. And her knees buckled as if the past had rushed toward her all at once. "Why you?" she whispered. Her handler stepped forward, alarmed. "I'm sorry, sir," Emily raised a hand, stopping him. She didn't look away from me, not even for a second. "I know him," she said. "He's the one who..." But her voice broke. I stepped closer. "You don't need to say anything. Just breathe. It's all right." She nodded, but tears were already slipping free. "You saved me," she finally whispered. "And then, you disappeared." I swallowed hard. "I didn't disappear. They sent me home early after the collapse. I never even learned your name." Her eyes closed as if she'd been waiting her entire life to hear that. But before she could speak again, the event coordinator rushed over with a strained smile. "Emily, we need you in position. The anthem is in 4 minutes." She wiped her eyes, nodded, and turned to me, but in that moment something fell from her folder. A photo. And when it flipped over at my feet, the world squeezed into a single point. It was a picture of the collapsed building. Taken 10 years ago. Taken from inside the rubble. A little girl covered in gray dust. Her tiny hand reaching toward the camera. And behind her, blurred but unmistakable, my uniformed sleeve. I froze. "What is this?" I whispered. She knelt down slowly, retrieving the photo with gentle hands. "My foster mom," she said quietly. She kept everything from that day in a box. Notes from the paramedics. Statements from the firefighters. Even the news reports. She hesitated. But some things, they weren't in the box. I frowned. "Meaning?" Emily's voice grew strained. "My case file. My identity records. Even the footage from the body cams. Gone. All wiped. They said the collapse caused it." She looked up at me with a haunted expression. But that wasn't the truth. A chill crept down my spine. "What truth?" I asked. She took a shaky breath. "The truth they tried to bury. The truth that building didn't fall by accident." Her words sliced the air. Before I could respond, the coordinator shouted, "Emily. Stage now." She stepped back, voice trembling but determined. "I'll tell you everything, after." And then she left, walking toward the stage lights while I stood frozen in the dark wing, her revelation pounding in my head like distant artillery. The building collapse wasn't an accident? Then what was it? And why wipe the evidence? As the auditorium dimmed and the spotlight found her, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever story had been buried 10 years ago, tonight it was rising back to the surface. And I wasn't sure any of us were ready for the truth. When the first note of the anthem echoed through the stadium speakers, I felt something in my chest shift. Not break, not crack, but move. Like a door I'd nailed shut a decade ago was suddenly being pushed open from the other side. Emily stood center stage, a single spotlight catching the pale shimmer of her choir uniform. Her voice rose, steady at first, then fuller, stronger, carrying a story no one in the audience knew she lived through. I wasn't watching the performance. I was watching the little girl who used to cling to my sleeve, coughing dust out of her lungs, whispering she didn't want to die. Now she stood in front of thousands, singing the anthem of the country that had promised to protect her. And yet someone had tried to erase what happened to her. Someone had erased me. As her final note faded and the stadium erupted into applause, she stole one look toward the wings, toward the shadows where I stood, as if searching for the one familiar thing in a crowd of strangers. Her eyes found mine. And that was when I felt it, a pull like gravity dragging me toward the truth. When she hurried off stage, she didn't slow down until she reached me. For a moment she just stared, breathing hard, cheeks flushed from emotion and stage lights. Then she whispered, "You came back." "I never meant to leave," I told her. "They pulled me off the site before I even knew your name." Her expression softened. But the calm didn't last. "Come with me," she said. "You need to see something." The room full of ghosts. She led me through a staff hallway to a small dressing room with peeling paint and a single humming fluorescent light. From her backpack she pulled out a folder, old, worn, held together by tape and stubbornness. "This is everything they let me keep," she said. The first page was a scanned paramedic report, time-stamped, location-tagged, from the day we pulled her from the rubble. But the second page, that one stopped my heart. A witness statement. Signed by me. Dated the same day. Only, my signature had been blacked out. Erased. "What is this?" I whispered. She sat on the table, swinging her feet like she was still the little girl who didn't know where she'd sleep next. "They didn't want you connected to the case," she said quietly. "My foster mom thought they sealed it to protect identities. But I found out later, they sealed everything from that collapse." "Why?" Emily hesitated. "Then, because the building wasn't supposed to be there." I felt the world tilt slightly. She continued, voice trembling with a truth she had carried alone far too long. "The developer cut corners, ignored inspections, used materials so cheap that the city tried to sue. But the company had connections, political ones." She looked at me with a decade's worth of pain. "The collapse should have been a criminal case. Someone should have gone to prison. But instead they buried it. And me. And you." My hands tightened at my sides. "They buried a child's trauma," I muttered. "For profit." "For protection," she corrected. "Their own." Silence filled the room like smoke. Then she reached into her folder and pulled out something else. Something I never expected. A photograph. Of me. Carrying her through the wreckage. Her arms wrapped around my neck. Her face buried into my shoulder. Taken by a rescue volunteer. Never released. Never archived. Never acknowledged. He placed it in my hands. "It's the only proof left that you were there," she said. "That you saved me." My throat tightened. "Emily, why show me this now?" She looked down. "Because I've spent 10 years trying to move on. Seeing helped. Therapy helped. But something inside me stayed stuck in that moment. In the moment you carried me out. I kept waiting for closure that never came." Her eyes lifted, wet but steady. "And then today you were suddenly here. Like the universe finally let me finish the story." I exhaled slowly. "Emily, I never knew you were alive." Her breath hitched. "I thought you forgot." "Never," I said firmly. "I've thought about you every year. Every anniversary. Every time I saw a collapsed building on TV. I just never knew how to find you." For the first time she let herself smile. A small, fragile smile filled with 10 years of missing pieces. "You found me today. Or maybe," I said, "you found me." The reunion. She stepped forward, hesitating only slightly before wrapping her arms around me. Not like a stranger. Not like a performer greeting a soldier. But like that same little girl who had once held on for dear life. I closed my eyes as the weight of 10 years finally lifted. Her voice was muffled against my chest. I never got to thank you. You don't owe me anything, I said softly. I do, she insisted, pulling back. Because you saved my life, and someone tried to erase that. I want to know why. You deserve the truth too. He looked at me, bold, steady, determined. I want to reopen the case. A chill ran through me. Not fear, purpose. You won't do it alone, I said. And just like that, the mission began anew. Not in rubble. Not under fire. But in a small backstage room under flickering lights, where a survivor and the soldier who saved her finally reunited to uncover a truth they were never meant to find. If you want, I'll write part 7, the anthem that healed us both, closure, next. The auditorium was packed, the kind of crowd that makes your chest tighten, not with fear but with anticipation. I sat in the back, trying to disappear into the shadows, my uniform neatly pressed, medals shining under the stage lights. The same stage where I had once delivered briefings, counseled the broken, and silently mourned the lives I couldn't save. But tonight wasn't about me, it was about her. Her. The little girl I had pulled from the rubble so many years ago. She was no longer small, no longer the frightened child clinging to my arm. She stood at the edge of the stage, her posture straight, her hands trembling only slightly as she held the microphone. I could see the faint scar above her eyebrow, a permanent reminder of the night that had changed us both, but her eyes were fierce, alive. I swallowed the lump in my throat. This was the moment I had feared and longed for in equal measure. I remembered the nights I had lain awake, replaying that day over and over, wondering if I had done enough, if I had failed her in ways I couldn't measure. And now here she was, about to sing the anthem that had carried us through the darkest years. The music started, soft at first, trembling like a whisper through the room. And then her voice came, clear, unwavering, hauntingly beautiful. Every note seemed to carry the weight of the years we had endured, every word a testament to survival, to courage, to the bond that had formed in the ashes. I felt tears spill down my cheeks, unbidden, unrestrained. For the first time, I allowed myself to be vulnerable in front of strangers. For the first time, I let the pain of the past intermingle with the pride I felt in the present. I looked around. Parents, teachers, strangers, all silent, captivated. No one moved, no one spoke, as if the world had held its breath for her song. And I realized then that this wasn't just about her. It was about me too. Every mission, every tear, every moment I had spent trying to protect a life that wasn't mine alone, it all led to this. Healing doesn't always come from closure and solitude. Sometimes it comes from watching someone else rise from the rubble you helped lift them from. Her eyes met mine as the final note lingered in the air. And in that brief, electrifying moment, I saw the reflection of my own redemption staring back at me. She had forgiven the world, and somehow she had forgiven me too. I could feel the years of guilt, fear, and uncertainty lift from my shoulders, carried away on the power of her voice. The crowd erupted, applause shaking the walls, but I barely noticed. I stood slowly, deliberately, and stepped toward the stage. She blinked, surprised, but didn't falter. I reached out my hand and she took it without hesitation. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice hoarse but steady. She smiled then, a small, radiant smile that carried more gratitude and understanding than any words could. "I should be the one thanking you," she said softly, her voice trembling with the same emotion that gripped me. And in that moment I understood something profound. Saving someone doesn't always mean keeping them safe from harm. Sometimes saving someone means giving them the courage to face the world, to stand tall, to sing their truth. And sometimes in saving them you save yourself too. The anthem faded, but the feeling remained. We didn't need to speak. The bond we shared was louder than any applause, stronger than any metal pinned to my chest. For years, I had carried the weight of the past alone, believing that my sacrifices were measured only by what I had lost. But now I knew. True honor wasn't measured by scars or medals, by missions completed or battles fought. It was measured by the lives you touch, the courage you inspire, and the hearts you heal. As we walked off the stage together, hand in hand, I felt lighter than I had in a decade. The rubble was gone, not the memory but the weight it had held over me. And in its place, a quiet, unshakable strength. The knowledge that we had both survived, both grown, and both found a way to sing again. The anthem had healed us, yes. But it had also reminded us of something even more powerful, that hope can rise from devastation, that courage can flourish in despair, and that sometimes, the smallest voices can carry the loudest truths. And as we left the auditorium, the lights dimming behind us, I realized that this was the real mission, the one I had been searching for all along. Not the medals, not the recognition, not even the victories on foreign soil. The mission of a lifetime was right here, in the echo of a song, in the hand of the girl who had taught me that survival is not enough. Healing is. And we were both finally whole.